Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another YouTube live show tonight. I am your good friend, John Kurtz, doing this show live for you right during a Kansas City Chiefs game because that's how much I love you and that's how much I love the Big 12. And what an interesting week it was in this conference. Dare I say, unless you are a Utah fan or West Virginia fan, a pretty damn good week. Pretty damn good week for the league. And I think a lot of this centers around Texas Tech. I said in the offseason, I think it's a good thing for the Big 12 and anybody outside of the elite brands of the sport if Texas Tech has a very good season. And that rings true with the aftermath of their dominant win in Salt Lake City and what is being said about the Red Raiders and what this could mean for the Big 12's playoff chances, at-large hopes, and reputation moving forward. How much and how often have we talked about the Big 12 needs some dominant brand? They need a brand to really step up and take over. If it's going to be Texas Tech and if it's going to be on the back of a bunch of money and talent that people respect, it's kind of like table stakes for the SEC and Big Ten to get any sort of respect as talent, recruiting rankings, all that. This could be very, very good for the Big 12. Okay, I have an important announcement tonight to make about how I feel the Big 12 power rankings, how the Big 12 tiers should be spaced out regarding Texas Tech specifically. We've got some blatant disrespect coming at the league, BYU, TCU, others in the AP poll that I want to talk about. Arizona State, actually. Okay, let me squeeze in ASU, how soon we forget about the defending Big 12 champs. The ACC has admitted that the Big 12 is better. I will tell you how that came about. And we have some reporting on Mike Gundy from Pete Thamel, and if you thought he was going to stick around somehow in Stillwater, my friend, you are sorely mistaken. You are sorely mistaken. That's the show that I have lined up for you. Please like the video as you file in. Please subscribe to the channel. All of that is great. I talk college football from a Big 12 perspective here on this channel. Do it multiple times per week when things are happening, okay? Have really been enjoying the live streams as things happen, and I appreciate the support you guys are giving me through that. If you click the $sign below the chat box, you can submit a super chat, which one will guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight, but also just a good way to support the channel if you like what I'm doing. So I appreciate everybody who does that. And you can also submit your question or comment on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you leave a donation there. If you do that, I will kick off the next show with it. So a good way to stay connected with the show, even if you are not able to catch the live streams as they're happening. And that's where I say hello to my friend Jared. Thank you, Jared, for your support of the channel. Jared just wanted to get a little shot in, wanted to needle the Utes. He said, loved watching Utah's elite defense this weekend. Elite defense. Taking a shot. Well, I still think Utah's defense is very good. But you know when it really started to crumble is when Texas Tech put Will Hammond in at quarterback, okay? Tech fans, it was very interesting for me to see the reaction to my tweets stating that I think Will Hammond is the guy at quarterback. I understand how complicated it is, but I am not the only one who saw it. Todd McShay fired off a nice tweet about that. It's been interesting seeing what the reaction has been from Red Raider fans on that. We'll get to it, okay? We'll get to it later on in this show. And I did do a live stream immediately after the game if you want to check that out on the channel. But we need to get rolling. We need to get rolling here, okay? Look, Texas Tech is officially the Big 12's most important team. They have opened up the possibility of the Big 12 being a multi-bid league in the playoff, and at the risk of committing one of the real cardinal sins that you can within the first month of the season, I'm putting Texas Tech a step above everybody else in the conference. I know that won't be received well in Ames, Iowa. I know that won't be received well in Fort Worth. I have seen enough. I'm ready to do it, okay? So Texas Tech now flirting with the top 10 after the 34-10 win in Salt Lake. They deserve it. They're at number 12 in the AP poll. I'm glad to see that. You know, maybe I would be lying if I said I didn't grumble a little bit at seeing Indiana at 11. I get what Indiana did yesterday. I'm well aware. It's a very impressive win. I don't know, what exactly I really think of Illinois. More on them later. But Texas Tech deserves to be near the top 10. They're going to have a bye week this week. Maybe depending on what happens in front of them, they can slip up another spot or two and actually crack the top 10. But, Joel Klatt said on the broadcast, I feel like this looks like a top 10 team to me. And it feels like most of the voters, most people across the country at least are in that same ballpark, which it is well deserved. And it is a sign of the attention that they are garnering right now, which I do think is very important. Okay. Because I would argue, in fact, I don't really know what the argument is against this. I would argue that since Texas and Oklahoma left this league, nobody in the conference has had college football at large's attention the way that Texas Tech does right now. And that is short of in the regular season. That's the caveat there, in the regular season. Because, when Arizona State has Texas at 4th and 13 in the Peach Bowl, does Arizona State have the nation's attention? Yes, Arizona State obviously did. But from a regular season perspective, not actually playing a direct postseason game against an SEC or a Big Ten team, I don't think anybody's had the nation's attention like this. And that is a very difficult thing to get. It's a very difficult thing to get from anybody these days. Like you'll hear people talk about the attention economy. That's really what it is right now. You're fighting for everybody's attention when everyone's face is down in their phone for 13 hours a day. It's not easy to get everybody's attention. And Texas Tech did that before the season even started. That was this offseason by shaking up the portal rankings. And we can have the debate of, is it fair that Texas Tech kind of gets labeled this team that's like buying their way to success, and it's like demonized. It's said in sort of a different tone than it is when like Ohio State last year made a bunch of headlines for spending a ton of money on an all-in moment in their roster, but it gets characterized for Ohio State as like all-in, whereas Texas Tech's like this big evil force and greed and, the symbol of greed in college, everything wrong with college sports. It is a double standard. It is a bit unfair, but in some ways I think that works for Texas Tech in the league because it creates more attention. It grabs people's attention. And what Texas Tech has now done is capitalized on that attention with some substance. They have backed it up. They did the first 3 games of the year too, but that's just a minuscule percentage of what you can do as opposed to when you go line up and play a team that some had in the top 10 after the UCLA game in Utah and in a brand that people know and trust in college football. Texas Tech backed that up. They have proved that this is not just a concept, it is a reality. I loved this. I was reading, and I apologize, I'm sure I'm going to botch his last name here. Nathan Geese of the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. He said, I thought this was great in his column about Texas Tech. He said, to this point, Texas Tech has been an idea of an elite team with so much to prove. And look, to me, like that's what changed on Saturday. Texas Tech beforehand they were an idea of an elite team. They were like, hey, this is a way you can do it. We think this will work. This is a concept. Okay. Concepts of a plan. Well, now this is a plan that works. This is a plan that works. And we have seen that based on Texas Tech going out and thumping Utah the way that they did. That to me makes them so important because any other Big 12 team that would have gone and won that game and started the season nicely would be getting some love, but would not have like the entire, like the casuals in college football, your casual SEC fan, your casual Big 10 fan, like they know about Texas Tech right now. They're paying attention to this storyline. And again, some of it is because of that jilted, twisted storyline of like, oh, Texas Tech, the greed and evil in college football. I would kind of lean into that and embrace that if I were you, Texas Tech fans, because I think that's actually helping. It's helping draw more attention to you. Now, if you're a fan, I get that the tendency then is to say, well, too much attention is going to be bad. We don't want this to go to our heads. We're going to slip up because of this. I've got a lot to say about that, okay? Because that is absolutely something that you'll have to fight, and that's something to think about, and that is like the thing on Joey McGuire's plate right now is fighting complacency and fighting what's going to happen over the next week, especially as you don't play a game this week. Okay. However, big picture generally here, I think for the odds of Texas Tech being a team that could be an at-large squad if they don't win the Big 12 championship, for the sake of the league just getting more respect in general. Like if somebody does jump up and beat Texas Tech, like there are a lot of good things that can happen from this, that can come from the attention that Texas Tech has generated. Okay. So I think this is in a lot of ways very, very positive. The blueprint, in a lot of ways, Texas Tech was a blueprint before this. Now we've seen a house actually start to be built. Maybe it's not totally finished right now, but they made a lot of progress, right? You haven't driven by in a couple of weeks. You drive by, you're like, damn, things really coming up fast. Like it's different. It's not a blueprint anymore. And so because of that, look, reflecting on this game, and I know some of you will say this is overreactionary, and I made a huge overreaction last season, in 2024 at this time about the state of the league and who was going to win the league. But I do think it is, to me, it is fair to say at this point in time, I mean, we'll see what happens. Tech has to fight complacency and all that, but we knew Texas Tech had the most talented roster in the league. We knew that. I had questions about them at quarterback, but I've now seen they've got the answer at quarterback. It just wasn't the guy that was starting. I mean, I've seen it now. I see the vision at quarterback. Like that dude can win the league and win playoff games. Will Hammond with that roster can win the league and win playoff games. So to me, I take it as disrespect if you want in Fort Worth and in Ames, whatever. It's not meant to be at all. But Texas Tech has a better roster, and now they've shown that they can go win anywhere in the league, and they have the most impressive win resume-wise in the league. So you combine those two things, Tier 1 is Texas Tech alone, period. Until proven otherwise, Tier 1 in this league is Texas Tech. I would put Iowa State and TCU in Tier 2, and I would say that Tier 3 is like BYU, Kansas, Arizona State, and Utah. I mean, I will still keep Utah there with potential upward mobility into Tier 2. I mean, as impressive as Texas Tech was, don't let that completely, write off Utah's chances for the rest of the year. Like if Texas Tech really is, there is a chance that they really are like a legit bona fide top 10 team. I mean, if they're that kind of team that can win a playoff game or two, there's not a ton of shame in Utah, like hanging tough until the fourth quarter when the wheels came off and Texas Tech just overpowered them. So they still could be higher up even than that. And like Houston and Baylor, I know another fan base that would get fired up about this. Houston, I'm saying not too far off of Tier 3, not too far off and close to being included in Tier 3. But you know what, Houston, you get your shot to shut me up rather quickly. Now go take care of business against Oregon State, but then you're going to get your shot at home against Texas Tech, coming off of all this, with all the love and all the hype surrounding them and all the time for them to read their press clippings, as Bill Snyder used to say. You'll get your chance. You will get your chance. Now, when I say I understand that I run the risk of committing one of the cardinal sins here at this point of the year, I'm gonna give you guys all a treat. Let's look at this. This is what I tweeted at about this time last season. This was after the, you guys all remember the Oklahoma State Utah game. Hilarious in hindsight. Looked like Big 12 game of the year right out of the chute. And Oklahoma State, Utah was not. I regret to inform you, the Big 12 game of the year last year. And after Utah won, I said a harsh reality for the Big 12 right now is that Utah looks like the class of the league, even without Cam Rising. A lot can change the rest of the year, but it's not a good look. Boy, that pretty terrible take by yours truly. Okay. There are swings and there are misses. There are swings and there are misses in this. And that was a miss. Utah, by the way, since that tweet has still not won a Big 12 home game. Incredible stat that Utah has not won a Big 12 home game yet. For as good as that atmosphere is, as good as that program has been, and yes, of course, as arrogant as the online fan base was as they came into the conference, they have not won a Big 12 home game. So if you're seething right now, if you're upset about this, just know I may be totally wrong. But this is my feeling right now. I have seen enough on Texas Tech to be like, okay, that does work. I'm now seeing that work. It's not just this grand idea, get all this talent together. Really feels like Joey McGuire has this thing put together really well. And, he says all the right things about we got guys that love wearing the double T, and they, the locker rooms bought in. That was the stuff, especially that beforehand. I was like, okay, Joey, that's great. You can say that, but we'll see. Well, I now see. I see. Like those guys fight their what's off. They play tough. They play hard. They out physicaled Utah. And when it got to 13-10, I think I mentioned this in the postgame show, but when it got to 13-10 and the stadium's rocking, and then you score 3 straight touchdown drives with a backup quarterback after that, you can't buy that. You can't buy that. That's not going in the portal and buying great players. That's Joey McGuire is on to something there, and he has that locker room really tough and ready to go. So there are dangers here, however. I recognize that, Texas Tech fans. Yes, you don't have to fight complacency. It's not just your average team that is now having a bye week off a big win to soak up everything nice that's being said about them, and then going into maybe a hornet's nest against an in-state rival in Houston, in-state school anyway. I guess we could debate whether or not that's a rivalry, but an in-state school that's going to really want a piece of you. There's reason to be concerned about that for sure. But I would layer on top of that, Tech fans get tired of me saying this, but this program has not been in this position since 2008, 2009. Like, I was in college. Guys, I'm in my mid-30s. I was in college the last time Texas Tech was in this position. Fairly early in my college years, the last time Tech was in this position. So it's a program that's not used to this and dealing with everybody saying this and having to just block that out and keep pressing forward and keep moving on. And that game had so much buildup and hype around it. And now that you got over that, like, is it going to be the same going to Houston? Will you be as fired up going to Houston? There is a lot of complacency that you'll have to fight through with that for sure. And the other tricky thing, I will absolutely openly admit this, as strongly as I feel about Will Hammond, to me seems like the guy at quarterback. That is a very tricky situation. On3 reported today that Baron Morton will not miss any time, just sore from the big hit he took. Baron, if it is still going to be you at quarterback, my man, please slide. Please slide, dog. Like, slide. Get down. This is admittedly very tricky. I get it. To me, I'm looking at the upside, and I'm thinking about really swinging for the fences, okay? Because Texas Tech, everything that's been done this year is all about swinging for the fences. And they have executed very well on that plan. But it's not about trying to hit a seeing eye single through the left side. Like, this is trying to blast one into the upper tank, man. And if you're trying to do that, it sure looks like Will Hammond is the guy that provides you more upside on the season. To me, it's very clear. If you get into a playoff game against a playoff caliber defense, which, like, Utah may well have a playoff caliber defense. They clearly do not have a playoff caliber offense, but they might have a playoff caliber defense. And you're going to need a guy that can make some big time throws into tight windows and or utilize his legs to make some huge plays. And it sure looks like Will Hammond has a lot more of that than Baron Morton does. I mean, some of those throws that he was dropping in, those are dimes, dude. Those are impressive. Meanwhile, Baron Morton was coming up just short, and it led to a couple of interceptions. Hammond also very fast, very athletic, can make plays with his legs. You just saw the way the offense functioned, man, when he was in the game. And so I look at that and say, if you're going to wind up in a playoff game, you're playing the Ohio State defense, in a playoff game, you're going to need somebody that can go make those throws. I don't know that I see Baron Morton doing that. I could see Will Hammond doing that with this roster around him, with the weapons that he has. Now, acknowledging that, there's absolutely, I'm sure, a lower floor here. Like, Baron Morton has been around the program forever, older, veteran, unfazed, unflappable in a bunch of different environments, though part of this is that Will Hammond, to me, showed that he has a lot more of that than I think we would have anticipated before today, and he's closer to Baron Morton than we would have anticipated before yesterday, anyway. However, I see that, you're like, hey, Will Hammond has probably a better chance that he goes out and has like a 3 interception game and really struggles and is just totally off than Baron Morton, who's going to be more even keel. Totally get that and understand that, which makes this a really complicated situation to handle. I understand. I would just come back to, hey, man, what Tech's doing right now is about swinging for the fences. It's not about laying up. This is about playing to get on the green in 2. This is not trying to just lay up and go for par. That's my thought. If that is the idea and the attitude of this program, which there seems to be, I'd be wanting to swing for the fences with Will Hammond. But anyway, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everybody who is here. Thank you for being here, my friends. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter as well. OFBnews.com to get signed up for that. Totally free to your inbox twice a week. 5,100 plus Big 12 fans are subscribed. Please, OFBnews.com. Sign up and support what it is that I am doing. I appreciate all of you. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to contribute to the channel that way, or you can click the $sign below the chat box and submit a super chat like my friend Starter179. Starter179, great to see you, my friend. Is the book out on the Utah offense? Just throw 5 to 7 NFL rush-ins and a probable butt-kiss linebacker, and it's over. That's funny. Yeah, the book is out. If you can go land 4 of the top 5 defensive linemen in the transfer portal and then have, a top 3 or 4 linebacker in the country, and you go run them out at the Utah offense, I would say the book is out. That's probably going to work. But in reality, when does Utah start to panic? They're now 0-5 at home in the Big 12. I don't see. This is where I would say, you don't panic, and I don't think Kyle Whittingham will panic. This is where it helps to have such a veteran, experienced coach. Whittingham's not going to panic. I think he understands, that's a very good team they just played. There's no reason to just give up on the season right now. Last year has no bearing to what is going to happen this year. I do think they are a better football team this year. Basically, the not winning a Big 12 home game thing, that's just made for Twitter and fan fodder and smack. That's not something I'd be worried about if I were anyone in that building, right, for Utah football. I get why fans, if you want to be worried about it, sure, and it's embarrassing and all that. But if you're Utah, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. I think I said it on Saturday. Does this deter Utah from being an 8-4 team, which is a significant step forward after last year's 5-7? No, it does not. I don't think so. So that would be the key to me. You don't panic. You don't panic. Tech's a really good team. Hey, you did fight them into the fourth quarter, and biggest play of the game got wiped off because your best offensive lineman made a bonehead mistake by being too far down the field, and maybe the game takes on a little bit of a different texture with some different game pressure on Texas Tech throughout. If you had that touchdown, I would be looking more on that side of things if I were Utah. But for your sake, Starter179, I know you're a Tech fan. That's really just better news for you. Basically, what I'm saying is Tech is so good, I would not panic. I would not panic if I were Utah. But thank you, Starter179. Thank you for being here. Justin, I'll get to you in just a moment since this one's related. Pacific Northwest Ute. Don't count Utah out. We only have 2 small flaws: offense, especially passing, and special teams, especially field goals. Yeah, my concern, if there is a concern long-term with Utah, it is definitely, in Starter179, you're talking about the book being out on Utah. My fear with Utah is just if Dampier is going to be still limited and kind of gimpy the rest of the year and can't be as explosive with his legs, I do think we're seeing you go up against a good defense. His arm is still limited enough that you may struggle to move the ball consistently. But my counter to that would just be, I don't know that you're going to see defenses as good as Tech's in that same stratosphere the rest of the year. And the Utah defense should keep you in games. But, Pacific Northwest U, I'm sure you know this, the fact that, season opener, Utah's using 3 players 2 ways. They've got Smith Snowden looking like their best playmaker on offense, and that's a defensive player playing both ways. That does tell you something about where the skill positions are at with Utah. Probably not where you would ideally like them, but that's never going to be a program under Kyle Whittingham where that's the strength. So keep doing your thing would be my message to Utah. Justin says, I'm rooting for K-State on Saturday. Yeah, K-State plays UCF, 5.5-point favorites early, which look, I don't know what Vegas needs to see. I don't know how many times K-State needs to roll out and put a pitiful performance on display for them to stop making them favorites in games. But I guess it's more than 3. I'll give K-State Iowa State. That's fine. I guess 3 in a row is not enough. So maybe it'll take a 4th. UCF looked at least solid on Saturday against North Carolina, who, is one team that maybe is worse than K-State this year. But anyway, Justin, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll see how things go. Congrats to UCF, by the way, for the win, or North Carolina. Alan, let's check in with Alan real quick before I get to the latest Big 12 disrespect that we've got on tap. Alan says, John, do you think Lance and KU have a puncher's chance of being the number 2 team in the Big 12 title game? Texas Tech, Iowa State, Utah, and K-State on our schedule. Hoping KSU can knock off a few contenders. Rock Chalk, Jayhawk, Allen. Yeah, I think best case scenario for K-State's season, honestly, is that it winds up looking somewhat like Kansas's did last year, where you're able to flip some switch and turn it on and get things figured out with your offense, and you become a spoiler in the back half of the season. Do I think KU has a chance? I do, Alan, and I want you to stay tuned for this upcoming segment that I have coming up, this next piece that I'm going to get into. I want to talk about Kansas, along with BYU and Arizona State, and I think people are sleeping on Kansas right now. I think it was easy to miss that KU West Virginia game on Saturday, and I think it is a significant result in telling us what this KU team might be. So yes, Alan, the answer is yes, and more in just a moment. If you want to make sure that you make it on the show tonight, you can click the $sign below the chat box to submit a super chat. John Deskirch -4 on Venmo. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. All that stuff really helps. Appreciate all you guys who do. You can subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. Is Big 12 getting hosed again? And is it the same BYU team who's at the forefront that got hosed all of last season? Nobody respected BYU enough. The answer is yes, but this is also about TCU. This is also about Arizona State. This is also about Kansas, okay? There's an entire tier, to me, of the Big 12 that's just not getting enough respect right now nationally. It's great that Texas Tech has it. I'm here for it. I want Tech to hold the nation's attention like they are right now. But let's respect the rest of the league, people. Let's respect the rest of the league. Arizona State, man. A little frustrating to me that Arizona State is not ranked after winning at Baylor when, again, I look at Illinois losing by 53 points and still hanging on there at 23rd. Why? Well, John, preseason expectations. That's why. I mean, Arizona State's loss was a last-second touchdown on the road at the number 27 team in the country right now, Mississippi State. Meanwhile, Illinois lost a game by 53 points. Okay? To me, that's ridiculous. I would not write off Arizona State yet. I wouldn't say Arizona State has been anywhere near impressive so far this season. They look to me like a team that is still finding itself. But if you're finding yourself, well, I mean, they had Mississippi State beat, okay? I mean, they had that game won, and then they did beat Baylor. They found a way to win a road game at Baylor, in a game that Baylor really needed. I think Arizona State is still a good team that has the potential to be more if I think one of the things they really have to do is develop more weapons on offense to help Sam Leavitt out, because Jordan Tyson is awesome, and you could see how often they were trying to go to him over and over again, and it finally popped at the end of the game to make a big impact there. But they need some extra help. Arizona State's offense needs some extra help. I don't think we've seen yet the roster really be able to figure out how exactly to fill the void of Cam Scadaboo, which was going to, that was never going to be one guy. That was never going to be Kanye Udo, whoever. It's going to take a collective effort. You're going to have to get multiple other playmakers to step up. I do think some of it has been Sam Leavitt pressing. I'm sure there's some of that. He's the guy that had the most expectation coming into the year. But I think they can still find it. And big game coming up this week. Big game coming up this week. The TCU game is on Friday, right? I was going to double check that real quick. I'm pretty sure Arizona State TCU is on Friday. It is on Friday. Monster game. And then Arizona State's at Utah. Then Arizona State's got Texas Tech. Then Arizona State's got Houston. Then they're at Iowa State. So, we're going to continue to find out a lot about ASU, and they have a tough schedule to really be figuring themselves out against. Like, this is not, hey, I need to go take a month and backpack Europe to figure myself out after college. There's no real time for that. You've got to do it on the fly. But they definitely can. I still think there's enough there. Like, the bones of a good enough team to do that are there. And look, the narrative on the team, if you listen to those that were connected with ASU football in the offseason, the word was, hey, the defense is ahead of the offense. It may take some time for the offense to figure this out. And I think it's played out like that. I wouldn't count out Arizona State. Okay. BYU. I wouldn't count out BYU. If I'm referencing Allen's super chat a moment ago, can KU be the number 2 team in the Big 12? Well, I wouldn't count out Arizona State from being the number 2 team in the Big 12. I would not count out BYU. Another win that probably flies under the radar on Saturday. BYU beating East Carolina. Not just beating East Carolina, but beating them the way that they did, 34-13. Close game toward the end of the half. One of the wildest stretches that you'll ever see from a single defensive player. Incredible stuff from Evan Johnson, who had an interception in the end zone as it's 6-3 and East Carolina's driving to maybe take the lead before halftime. Evan Johnson picks him off in the end zone. BYU then has to punt, but the punt is fumbled back to the 1-yard line for East Carolina. And then ECU quarterback on an RPO tries to throw it out toward the sideline, and Evan Johnson steps in and has like a 2-yard pick six. Just completely flipped the game on its head. That bought enough time for Bear Bachmeier to get it going in the second half. And, man, the guy still has not turned it over. You know, I mean, he was not prolific in the first half by any stretch. BYU's got to get better at finishing drives with him, but he goes 18-25 for 246, 2 touchdowns, 2 total touchdowns, no interceptions, 0 turnovers through 3 games. Like, you'll take it. I mean, there's another instance of, hey, got to figure yourself out with a true freshman quarterback here. But so far, so good, doing it on the fly and doing it in a road atmosphere that was tough. That's a team that damn near beat NC State and completely crushed Coastal Carolina. I think it's a better team than people on name value would give it credit for. It's a better win. That's a better win than most are thinking about. And that's why I say it feels like just the disrespect continues from last year for BYU. BYU started the year ranked 23rd in the coaches poll. They've done nothing but just demolish teams in their path, right? I understand not all of it's been great competition. I'm not going to tell you to put them in the top 10 for beating Portland State, but you start 23rd in the coaches poll, kill an FCS team, dominate, squeeze the life out of Stanford, who does seem now to be a little bit better than maybe we thought they were, and then go on the road with this test to East Carolina, who was, I mean, they were hungry. Like they wanted this. It's a good, experienced offense, raucous crowd, and no problem. You know, we'll just deliver a 3-score win. How about that? BYU defense seems as advertised, and they're bringing along Bear Bachmeier. I'm sure there are going to be bumps in the road with Bear Bachmeier, but when you got a defense that has allowed 1 touchdown in 12 quarters, pretty good. Pretty good. 11 straight quarters. Am I right on that? 11 straight quarters to start the season before a touchdown was allowed. Yeah, pretty good stuff, man. Pretty good stuff from the BYU defense. In Kansas, Alan, here's your Jayhawks. I would not count out Kansas from this discussion either. 41-10 over West Virginia. This to me was very predictable. I was debating with somebody this week. They were looking at the line of the Kansas game. I think it was KU minus 12.5, something like that. I was like, dude, that's easy money. And they were kind of questioning me, like, West Virginia sure seemed to look a lot better against Pitt. And I was like, yeah, look, West Virginia is not in a position right now as a program, I think, to like withstand the injuries and do it on the road the next week at a pretty good team coming off the high of that win. This seemed very obvious to me. And I've watched a lot of Kansas football. People tell me, and it is probably a fair criticism, that being a K-State fan, I may be a little too close to the situation with Kansas, a little more inclined, like cynical fan in me being like, oh no, like Kansas looks pretty good here. But Kansas looks pretty good, guys. Fresno State, who KU spanked in week 1, they won 4 straight games. Okay. They just crushed West Virginia. And that Mizzou result, I mean, Missouri wins again. They beat a ranked South Carolina team on Saturday. Mizzou may be a really good team. And Kansas had Mizzou down and facing a 4th down with like 7 minutes left to go in Columbia. I think that result is actually pretty telling and pretty impressive about what Kansas is. Like if I started looking at Kansas's schedule too, as you go down there, and I'm like, dude, it's hard for me right now to look at Kansas's schedule and say, that's not going to be an 8-4 or 9-3 team. It sure does look like that, in my humble opinion. KU rushed for 269 yards. Not a huge day for Jalen Daniels through the air, but he's still running around making plays. Like, if you just go watch highlights of Kansas so far this year, I mean, it looks like quintessential Jalen Daniels. The offense looks very similar to what it looked like under Andy Kotelnicki. They've got Emmanuel Henderson now as a special teams weapon who popped a kickoff return touchdown, had another really long kickoff return. Their offensive line, like, they seem to do a pretty good job with the physicality of West Virginia. Didn't allow a sack after West Virginia came in 4th in the country in sacks. I don't know. I would not sleep on Kansas at all. And that's another team where I'm looking at it. Okay, AP poll. Where was my note about the AP poll with Kansas? They're getting 0 votes, not a single vote for Kansas in the AP poll. They're getting 6 in the coaches poll. I feel like that's too low. I think there should be more respect for Kansas and what they're doing right now. So we'll see. KU could really get on a roll, I think, with the upcoming schedule. They do. I see Jeff talking about KU getting clobbered in Lubbock. They do have to go to Lubbock. That's not going to be easy, but the rest of the Kansas schedule, so I try to pull it up here for you. That's on October 11th, by the way, when they go to Texas Tech. But yeah, Kansas has Cincinnati at home, then they're at UCF. Those are 2 very winnable games. I would expect them to win those 2 games and be 5-1 going to Tech. And all of a sudden, I mean, that could be a fun game. There could be some buildup for that. And then after that, Kansas has K-State, Oklahoma State at home back-to-back. Look like the 2 worst teams in the league right now. Then they're at Arizona. And then they'll finish the year at Iowa State and against Utah. And those would be the games that'll determine, okay, are you 8-4 or are you 9-3, 10-2? That's the way it looks for me right now with Kansas. So do not sleep on the Jayhawks. Do not forget to like the video, those of you that are here, or subscribe to the channel. That would be great. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com. I will get to the Mike Gundy conversation in just a minute, but we do have to talk ACC Big 12, which now continues to spiral on the ACC after what happened on Saturday. But you can submit a super chat by clicking the $ below the chat box. Appreciate everybody who does that. And let's start with flipping the script. Flipping the script says Utah can flip the script on October 11th against Arizona State. First Big 12 home win. Well, what is Utah's schedule before that? Let's go look at the opportunities for Utah's first Big 12 home win. Okay, it doesn't come until October 11th. I was like, that seems like a long ways away, but I guess, yeah, if you've got a bye week after the road trip to West Virginia, that is correct. I mean, look, that seems like an awesome game. I told you, I think both of those teams are kind of in the same tier for me, that like tier 3, which is like 4 through 7 or 8 in the Big 12 right now. I think that's a great game. Great game. And then after that, of course, you got the Holy War. Like we've got a lot of good stuff coming up on the Utah schedule, and I would not write them off at all. Then that game at Kansas at the end of the year could be another huge one for Utah. So yeah, they absolutely could flip the script. I like that, flipping the script. Kim, what's up, Kim? Yesterday we saw who TCU is. Well, last night we saw who ASU is, and Baylor is not. It's a rebuilding year for West Virginia. Yeah, Baylor's frustrating to me. As a guy who picked Baylor to go to the Big 12 championship game, they're not that far off, but there's just something missing still from that whole mix. And, you know, I mean, some of it is defensively, but they're just not making it. It was defense clearly in the Auburn game. They showed a flair for the dramatic, and Sawyer Robertson is definitely a guy that can throw you into about any game. He did that against SMU, but just not enough consistency. Too many turnovers, obviously, in the game against Arizona State yesterday. And then you're watching the end of the game. You need a big defensive stop. There was enough time left. If you stop Arizona State on that last drive, you can have a chance at a game-winning field goal. And instead, you get a silly penalty. You know, Dave Aranda's defense picks up a silly penalty that just makes that a tailor-made drive to boot the game-winning field goal through for Arizona State. So there's something missing from the mix right now in Waco. I do think they've come a long way since like 2022, but it's just not quite there. And like 22 and 23. Those teams, and Baylor fell off after winning the Big 12. I don't think they're that bad. I don't think they're that far off. And they rallied last year when everybody had totally written them off. So I'm not completely bailing on them entirely on being a salty team this year. But man, after the SMU win, the loss and the way that they lost that, fairly disappointing to me. It's definitely a rebuilding year for West Virginia. I know I've had this debate with West Virginia fans since the offseason where I was like, guys, you need to be a little more patient with Rich Rod. Some of the expectations I was seeing for year one, it's like you can't turn over 75% of the roster, 80% of the roster with a new coach and just expect Rich Rod seems great, but it's not going to just snap your fingers and go. And then obviously they've had the injury stuff, which has not helped. I mean, losing Jaheim White was killer. That was killer. So Kim, appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, my friend. Okay. So both the data and even the most intense, fervent ACC defenders themselves are saying the Big 12 is the better league right now. How about that? Saturday has reduced even the most passionate ACC defenders to be like, well, Big 12 actually is the better league here. What can we say? UCF 34, North Carolina 9, TCU 35, SMU 24. Let me start with TCU. I know I talked a little bit about them in the immediate reaction live stream on Saturday, but this is a game that could have been a 20-point win for TCU. Speaking of me being frustrated, I was very annoyed with TCU throughout that game. Like, TCU should be in firm control of this. They let SMU hang around too much. TCU outgained SMU by 150 yards. And if you just take away, now some of this was I know officiating. I'm hearing TCU fans complaining about the officiating, and I get it. Like that, the McAllister, that was a touchdown. I really felt like that was a touchdown. He got his foot in bounds. And more than anything, it was just like, dude, when someone makes a play like that, can we give them the benefit of the doubt when it really is like 50-50 and you just can't tell on the replay? Just give him the touchdown, man. It was a hell of a play. But there's that, and then there's like the 50-50 ball in the end zone that gets ripped away for an interception. That was so close to being another touchdown. You know, you have a missed field goal in there for TCU too. I was like, there's just so many points left on the board here. And like, frankly, Eric McAllister could have had 5 touchdowns. The 2 plays I just named were the touchdowns 4 and 5 for McAllister. As wild as that is, that would have been 7 for Josh Hoover. So this probably should have been like a 20-point TCU win. That was an impressive effort. And man, you could just see, I got to read you some of this. I don't know if I'm going to read the whole thing because it's very long. But guys, I got to read you Rhett Lashley, SMU head coach, after the game. You know this one stung, man. This one stung for not just the ACC, but SMU and Rhett Lashley. Now, I know that there's more context baked into this. TCU has opted not to renew the Iron Skillet rivalry for now. But, dude, Rhett Lashley after the game, after losing this, I'm sure it was a really big deal for them to win this game after what we did to them last year. Okay, so you're immediately going to, well, we beat you last year. They were motivated. We put 66 on them. We didn't beat them today. They did. We're 3-3 the last 6 times we played. This really felt like Rhett Lashley was like on Twitter. This felt like Rhett Lashley being like Twitter guy arguing after the game with a TCU fan. I think they know what we're building. I think they know what's coming. I think everybody else does. This stinks. I hate losing. I hate losing to them. I hate losing to anybody. I hate it for our players, our fans, our administration, our donors. What we're building for the long haul. It's funny, you go 2-2 to start the season. People forget you've won 22 games in the last 2 years, or haven't lost a conference game in almost 3 years in the regular season, which is funny because while that is true, not losing a regular season conference game in the ACC, they have lost 3 games to Big 12 opponents since entering the ACC. So thank you for helping make this point, Rhett Lashley, that the Big 12 is a superior league to the ACC. Quote, there are going to be ups and downs on the climb. Make no mistake, we're still climbing. We weren't the ones that wanted to stop playing the game. We're going to play the teams on our schedule. We're in the ACC, one of the best 3 leagues in America. So there he goes again, even though he just admitted we beat everybody in the ACC, but we can't beat anybody in the Big 12. We're going to go to Notre Dame next year. Then we're going to have OU come to town. Then we're going to home and home with LSU. We're going to keep building a program that plays on that stage. We're not going to worry about what happens 40 miles west of us. Boy, salty, my friend. That is salty with a capital T from our friend Rhett Lashley at SMU. That one hurt him. Now, he's not wrong that that game should be played. Okay, TCU, I get the reasons that you're not doing it. I understand. But play the game. For college football's sake, play the game. And SMU, much as we like to poke fun at them, it does look like they're going to be at least a formidable opponent here. They're not, SMU has elevated itself. Let's give them credit for that. You should play the game. But funny to see Rhett Lashley go into basically Twitter fingers after the game with what he's saying at the podium. So that tells you how much that meant to the ACC. Anyway, so that's a part of it, right? Rhett Lashley, ACC guy, in his quote, already admits, but hey, the ACC is the inferior conference. We beat everybody in the ACC. We don't beat these teams in the Big 12. So there's part one. I've also got some data, and I've also got, that's not even the part that I was referencing when I said the most fervent ACC defenders have admitted the Big 12 is better. By the way, UCF 34, North Carolina 9. UCF just kind of slowly and steadily was the better team throughout the game, and just kind of felt like North Carolina was just slowly bleeding out the entire way. Never threatened to win that game at all. Never threatened to get much going on offensively at all. And this is a UCF team that, Scott Frost made mention of this after the game. I think most figured was going to be the worst team in the Big 12, or certainly one of the bottom 2 or 3. And they're just slowly demolishing and sucking the life out of North Carolina, who, by the way, also got clubbed by TCU, as you well know. So North Carolina, where was the stat? What have they lost these combined games by this year? Did I not write that down? It was an insane amount. I guess I didn't. They have been, there we go. 82-23. TCU and UCF beat North Carolina by a combined 82-23. Best football coach of all time, 82-23. He loses when going up against the Big 12. Here, this is the tail of the tape this year for the Big 12 against the ACC. The Big 12 is 6-1. You're keeping track at home. 6-1 against the ACC. TCU and Baylor both beat SMU, playoff team from last year. TCU and UCF both beat North Carolina by a combined 82-23. West Virginia, who looks like one of the bottom few teams in the Big 12, beat Pitt last week. BYU destroyed Stanford. And the one in the 6-1 against the ACC, that was Colorado. Expectation being a lower half of the Big 12 team. Certainly that's played out this way so far this year. Barely losing to Georgia Tech, the 16th ranked team in the country. So, tail of the tape right now, based on what's happened this season, would certainly tell you the Big 12 looks like a better conference. Now, I'm labeled as Big 12 propaganda guy. I am aware that Florida State and Miami exist. Okay, but let's take a look at the AP poll. Big 12 right now has 12, 14, 24, and 25. The ACC has 2, 8, and 16. Obviously, there are more Big 12 teams there. Okay, let's start with that. Clemson has been a massive disappointment. Clemson does not look very good at all. The Big 12, I would say Texas Tech to me. Let's call Texas Tech and Florida State a wash. FSU fans might not like that. I'm going to call Florida State and Texas Tech a wash. Miami is the outlier and the difference there. Miami does look like a bona fide national championship contender, though do not put it past Mario Cristobal to find a way to not get that team into the playoff. All right, wait and see, but they certainly have a talented enough roster to do it. That's a team that the Big 12 doesn't have. Miami, yes, I think has an extra gear or two to their ceiling than even Texas Tech has. But the rest of it, the Big 12 has a lot more depth. They've got more quality. I think behind those teams, it's a really healthy debate. And if you're going by the numbers, okay, Tom Fernelli from the Cover 3 podcast, who uses, I think he calls it the Fernelli Plus, right? But you see like the S&P Plus that Bill Connolly uses, like everybody's got their computer metric. His metric has the Big 12 as closer to the Big 10, way closer to the Big 10 than it is to the ACC. I mean, look at this thing. The Big 12 is like right there with the Big 10 in terms of power rating for the conference. The ACC, not even close. What are we? The Big 12 is like 3.5. The ACC is closer to the American Conference than it is to the Big 12. Okay, so I'm presenting these numbers. I didn't make them. Tom Fornelli made him, and he's the guy that after week 1 said the Big 12 was a one-bid league. So this is not a biased source here, my friends, and or ACC fans who might be watching this video. All right. But look, set all that aside. If you're still not convinced, you still need some deciding vote here after seeing Big 12 6-1 against the ACC, some blowout wins. They've got Rhett Lashley resorting to the childish Twitter arguments after the game. How about we just ask SMU fans? Who has more fervently defended the ACC than SMU fans over the last couple of years since they got into that conference? Nobody loves the ACC like SMU fans, all right? And even SMU fans are resigned to the fact that they have to admit that the Big 12 is the better league. Let's look at this. Thanks to Message Board Geniuses, one of the best Twitter accounts out there. We let Sonny have the last laugh. I can't believe it. That gross backstabbing traitor deserves nothing, and he gets to walk away with everything. They get the skillet indefinitely. I'm seriously sick to my stomach. This loss is unforgivable. So many different reasons why. Season is ruined. Doesn't matter how many more games we can win from here. Just makes the ACC look incredibly weak. If we win from here out, it's a no-win situation and would lead to many more consequences down the road. Can't even begin to argue that the ACC is as good as the Big 12. Can't even begin to argue that the ACC is as good as the Big 12. Nothing to stand on, and a lot of it is our fault. Man, we couldn't beat either TCU or Baylor. It's completely humiliating. This guy's down bad. Aim for the bushes. I hope you're doing okay, my friend. Sun did come up today. It's going to be all right. Aim for the bushes, I would also say. Rhett Lashley, as much as I poke fun at him here, he's a guy that's definitely fighting at a moment in time where you need a fighter like that to be leading your program, fighting for every freaking inch to try and make it to the next iteration of whatever college football is going to be. You got donors that are doing that. You got a coach that's doing that. SMU is going to be just fine. But forgive us if we indulge in having a little bit of fun with it as the Big 12 beats SMU again this weekend. Okay. You can submit a super chat by clicking the $sign below the chat box. Appreciate those of you who do it. Ton of people in here. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. All of that really helps. And is much appreciated. OFBnews.com to subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter twice a week to your inbox, totally free. 5,100 plus Big 12 fans already subscribed. Another great way to support the content that I am putting together. Okay, let's check in with Justin again. Justin says, shout out to the American for having more P4 wins, 6 than the ACC and Big 10, 5. Guess who currently has the longest winning streak in the FBS? Memphis. All right, hey. Shout out to the American, Justin. Justin, what did USF play on Saturday? I was just realizing, I'm like, after the Miami game, I didn't see. Yeah, South Carolina State, 63-14. Congrats, Justin. Still a great start to the year. Beat Boise, beat Florida, lose to Miami, who looks like one of the best teams in the country, and now thump South Carolina State. There you go. Justin, appreciate you. Good to see you, my friend. Starter 179. Big 12, clearly the better conference, but will that help us get 2 teams in the playoff? Miami and FSU would get it over an at-large Tech, ISU, or BYU team. Yes, probably, yeah. I think you're looking at one of those teams being the overwhelming favorite to win the conference. Like, SMU and Clemson, the 2 teams that went to the playoff last year, look like, well, Clemson definitely looks like a shell of itself. I'm not sure that SMU is that far off from what it was last year, but they came up short. Basically, they came up short in a game they should have won against Baylor. TCU, they should not have won that game, as I've already covered. But, they lost to BYU at the beginning of last year and then still rolled through the ACC. They are going to have to play Miami this year, so they're definitely going to get a regular season loss coming. But yeah, all that to say, you would expect one of those 2 teams to win the league. I think as long as it's not a disastrous, like a 3-loss ACC season for one of those 2, whoever the one is that's not winning the league, yeah, they're probably standing a great shot to get in. But 2 ACC teams does not mean that the Big 12 couldn't get 2 in as well. And Texas Tech, frankly, I know starter 179, you'd be wanting Tech to win the league, but that's the best at-large shot for the Big 12. If somehow Tech's unbeaten going into the title game, then lose. All that talent, the cachet that they've built up with the talent and the reputation that they have, Tech could very well still get in as an at-large, would definitely have the best shot of any Big 12 team. if there's somebody else that wins the league. If it's an Iowa State or a BYU or a TCU or an Arizona State that loses in the Big 12 championship game, especially if you're Arizona State, who already has one loss this year, that's going to be a tough task. Yeah. Then I start to side with your concern there and being like, yeah, that seems like it would be a difficult ask to get that team in as an at-large for the Big 12. So we'll see. I'm not going to freak out too much about it right now, and I'm going to try not to talk about it too crazy often right now. Inevitably, that's going to be a part of the conversation, but you guys know the deal. Not my favorite thing in the world to base everything solely on the playoff. So Starter 179, appreciate you. Thank you for being here, my friend. Let's close out with a little Mike Gundy. I know that I already talked plenty about this on Friday after 19-12 loss to Tulsa, but if you had any doubt about whether or not Mike Gundy was actually going to be ousted at Oklahoma State, if he'll be the coach there next year, let me just remove all doubt for you. We've got some reporting from Pete Thamel that has come up, and it's on the heels of a 19-12 loss at home to Tulsa on Friday night. Once again, a hilariously fitting score for just how ugly that game was for Oklahoma State for so many reasons. In-state team that had not beaten Oklahoma State since the 50s. That is the smallest school in FBS, Tulsa, which does have a very nice campus. I have been to the University of Tulsa. I used to date a soccer player at the University of Tulsa when I was in college. So I've actually spent a little bit of time there, but not exactly a place that I would walk around and be like, yeah, seems like a football powerhouse. Braylon Presley, Dominic Richardson, those are the guys doing it to Oklahoma State, former Cowboys. So Oklahoma State's having to deal with the loss to the in-state rival. You got the coach running his mouth, which he should after winning that game, on the mic, on the field. You got to deal with these former guys that we kind of told weren't good enough as we're trying to revamp our roster, and then they come and just push us around in our building. They just got bullied. It was coming off of a bye week. You guys want me to keep going? Wet blanket up. I'm sorry, they beat you in 98. It was that didn't win in Stillwater since the 50s, right? Didn't win in Stillwater since the 50s. Tulsa won in 98 in general. Got my stats mixed up there. But outgained by 150 yards in the first half. First time in 20 years that Tulsa had a double-digit halftime lead against a Power 4 opponent. And until a fourth quarter touchdown, Oklahoma State had scored no touchdowns against FBS teams since November 23rd of last year. Okay, things are not good in Stillwater. Things are not good in Stillwater. And Mike Gundy, after the game, I was curious. I remember saying on that live stream on Friday, very curious how this press conference will go. I do feel like when I play these Twitter clips, sometimes they're a little quiet, so bear with me here. But let me play you this. Mike Gundy responding to some direct questions. Basically, the question here is like, what would you tell fans who are wondering why you should be the head coach still at this point? And here is what Mike.
I gave you a message earlier about the fans. They were awesome tonight. They really were. The stadium was full and they were fired up and they were awesome. But those aren't decisions that I make. And my decision is to do exactly what I mentioned earlier, and get these guys and keep moving forward and go on down the road. And that's what we do.
Honestly, about the only answer you can give if you're Mike Gundy. Like, I gave you an answer earlier about the fans. The fans were great. Credits the fans, and then says all I can do is just move forward. We got to just move this team forward, right? So it didn't really get contentious. It didn't really get crazy. That's just the only move. That's the only move that Mike Gundy has at this point. And I know there's been some thought out there from people like, I don't know, what can you do? He's a legend at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, I think, showed already last season where this was going, that they were not afraid to make him adjust the contract, adjust the buyout, just to keep his job, to avoid him from going away. So I am not shocked at all to see this reporting from Pete Thamel. Also, if you listen to Carson Cunningham on the downfall of Oklahoma State football video on this channel, which you should definitely check out, he more or less said the same thing. Like, they're not messing around with this. They understand how important of a time it is, and that they can't let this drag on too long, even if he is a legend. Here's what Pete Thamel had to say. This story came out on Saturday. ESPN's Pete Thamel says, I've been told by sources there's an overwhelming expectation that both the coaching staff and the highest levels of the athletic department are going to be overhauled at Oklahoma State in the upcoming weeks. Quote, remember, Gundy restructured his contract. They owe $15 million to fire him, and it would be a shock to the industry if Gundy is the coach at Oklahoma State in 2026. So let's start with that. Work backwards here in reverse order. It would be a shock to the industry if Gundy is the coach at Oklahoma State in 2026. Strong words there. And I mean, it would be a shock to me, but it's one thing for me to tell you that. It's another for Pete Thamel, very connected guy, to tell you that the industry is very much not expecting this to be a thing, that this seems like an untenable situation. There's also the mention of the restructured contract, $15 million to fire him. Once again, with those, important detail is it all due up front? Does someone have to write a $15 million check right now, or can you write $5 $3 million checks over the next 5 years? That's much more manageable if you're going to get that. But I think people around Oklahoma State have to be so motivated at this point that I don't imagine that that's going to be a problem, whatever it's going to take to get them out there. Definitely. And listen, the other part of this pay attention. It says the highest levels of the athletic department are going to be overhauled at Oklahoma State in the upcoming weeks. Chad Weiberg, the athletic director, infamously his contract is up at the end of this year, had not been renewed. So there'd been talk about that, like what's going to happen with him. That certainly does not sound like good news for him. A lot of change happening at Oklahoma State. And I would just say, look, I don't know. Chad Weiberg is a K-State guy, so I'm not trying to beat him up just for no reason here. I don't know the situation intimately enough at Oklahoma State, like how things have gone there. I know that, basketball has been floundering. I can see that basketball has been floundering. I can see now that football is floundering. So I get why, his job may be somewhat in question here. But I would just say kudos to Oklahoma State for how many times you guys hear me yell meet the moment at K-State right now for the vibes that I get there. Kudos for Oklahoma State seemingly being willing to meet the moment here. New university president, new leadership, understanding how important it is right now to get this right. Don't want to be left behind in college athletics. You can't let this drag on too long. There's no room for nonsense on this. Team went 0-9 in the Big 12 last year, and they've already lost by 66 to Oregon and lost at home to Tulsa. Can't mess around with this. And it seems like they are not messing around with this. Now they got to follow through. But Pete Thamel doesn't report this if it's not something that is likely to happen. And I don't know exactly where this comes from, but I would think this is probably just a message Oklahoma State is wanting to get out there through somebody like Pete Thamel, like a message to the fans. It's kind of like a flare to the fans. Like, hey guys, we know, we got this. People want answers and accountability right now. We're going to give it to you. Okay. We've got this. That's my thought on it too, especially when it's coming from a guy like Thamel. I'm thinking that seems like it's probably something that comes from the university wanting to intentionally get a message out there about this. I don't know that for sure. That's my speculation, but that's definitely my thought. So with that, good show tonight, guys. Appreciate you. We talking Dabo? Oh man, no, someone threw that out about, K-State. I see you guys talking about Dabo, would they hire Dabo? Someone threw that out about K-State and hiring Dabo if he's going to be out at Clemson. I don't know that I want to be. Dabo seems very similar to Gundy right now. Like two guys that were very stubborn about like wanting to do things their own way. And it seems like it's maybe biting them in the butt right now, not being quite on the cutting edge of the way the sport is going. Dabo's got a lot of season left, but boy, yeah, Clemson doesn't look very good right now either. I'm not sure he'd be a guy that I would, if it were 10 years ago, it'd be a great hire. I don't know about in 2025. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you being here. Please like the video on your way out. Please subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed. Many of you are not, based on the numbers that I see watching. So it would be great if you did like the video and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. To do that, you can drop me a line on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4, John-Kurtz-4. Leave a question or comment there. I will kick off the next show with it if you did. So, appreciate you guys. Take care. I'm going to go check out this Chiefs game. Hopefully they're not about to start 0-3. And I will talk to you all very soon. Take care.